Would you like to hear some of the best advice related to LinkedIn from the past year of the podcast, hand-selected by me and my team at Content 10x? We focused a lot on LinkedIn this year, and we've had some incredible guests who are true experts in the platform. If you want to succeed on LinkedIn, you are going to love this week's episode.
Welcome to the Content 10x podcast, the show where content creators learn how to harness the power of content repurposing. And now, your host, Amy Woods.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and this week's episode is a special one. To round off the year, I decided to share a selection of the very best bits of the past year of the podcast about a social platform that should be an integral part of every content marketing strategy. That's right, it's LinkedIn. So coming up are the best bits of the Content 10x 2020 podcast episodes, hand-selected by me and my team, that will really help you to make the most of this incredibly valuable platform. I'm sure you're going to love it. So first up is taken from a solo episode, and then later on I'm going to move on to sharing what many of my incredible guests have had to say too. Now, the pandemic has seen so many changes to our working lives, but perhaps a silver lining is the level playing field in production values for video. We've seen everything from wonky framing and dubious lighting. We've seen James Corden filming his TV show The Late Late Show from his garage, and Ellen broadcasting from her living room. So lower production values than having a big video crew in a studio have become the norm. And I believe that there has never been a better time to create and share your own videos and maximize engagement on LinkedIn than right now. So this clip is taken from episode 140 called Now is the Perfect Time to Embrace LinkedIn Video. We've seen so many examples of these big celebrities and also brands, businesses, broadcasters who are embracing this more raw kind of native content. Another example is the news shows that would have had experts come in to the studio, hair and makeup, and then be interviewed in that studio setting. And we're now seeing all of these experts just dialing in via Zoom or whatever software they use. So if we're seeing all of these professionals and all these TV shows getting away without a single member of their production team on set and without the flashy studios, then isn't this just the perfect time for you to get started as well? If TV stars can film from their iPhones in some cases and get interrupted by their kids and be in their living room, then it starts to level off the playing field for what you can do as well. So this imperfect approach to video has suddenly become totally accepted amongst audiences. So don't stop yourself from starting because you think that you need that world-class camera or the studio or the videographer in the video team, because that's just not the case. And right now, starting with what you've got will make you look the same as the biggest brands, businesses, celebrities and production houses right now. So that's why I think now is a great time. I hope you enjoyed that. That podcast episode was number 140. So head to content10x.com/140 to listen to it, or read the blog post or watch the video as well. And this episode is your go-to for more on recommended equipment and clever tips and tricks, including lighting and body language. Because believe me, really small adjustments can make a big difference on screen. Now, don't forget to listen, but also you must head to content10x.com/video guide to get a copy of our free guide too. It's called The Simple Guide to Getting Started with Video on LinkedIn. Again, that's content10x.com/video guide, and it really does help you with everything from tech setup to your video backdrop, on-screen presence and confidence and more. So do check that one out. Okay, so next up is another solo episode from me, and it's about video content again. If you know me, you'll know that I'm a big fan of video content and have started creating a lot more videos myself in 2020, and I will in 2021 as well. It performs well, it's highly engaging with huge potential for creativity and of course repurposing. I'm all about the repurposing. Now couple that with LinkedIn and you really do have a dynamic duo. Now whilst I believe that to really establish your authority and build your influence, you need to create solo videos positioning you as a thought leader. But that does not mean that you should only create solo videos. I do think that you should consider guest interviews too. Why? They're a great way to associate yourself with industry experts and an opportunity to build a new new and possibly very fruitful relationship yourself. But how do you go about getting that all-important guest on your show? Check out this clip from podcast episode 141 called How Video Interviews on LinkedIn Can Build Authority and Connections. So how can video interviews open doors for you? Well, you can reach out to interview people for your show who you want to establish a relationship with, people who you want to get on the radar of and get in front of, perhaps people who you want to do business with. So having a video interview show or creating video interview content, whether you call it a show, whatever you want to call it, means that you have an outlet that enables you to connect with people you otherwise may have struggled to connect with. So video interviews are basically a networking machine for you. Every person you interview can potentially become part of your network. And if you think about it, if there is someone you would like to speak to and you get in touch with them and you ask them if they would meet with you or have a quick call with you, you might get a no because we're all busy and it might not be the most enticing request for them. But if you get in touch with the same person and you say, hello, I'm the host of such and such a show. I interview leading experts in whichever industry you're in. And people I've interviewed in the past are X, Y, Z, and here are some links. And I'd love to invite you onto the show. I love your content and I'd love your thoughts on such and such a topic. And I think my audience would really benefit from hearing you speak more on this. Now that is more likely to get a yes. You're recognising their knowledge, and let's face it, it's good for the ego and flattery can get you far. I hope you found that useful. If you'd like a deeper dive on this topic, then check out the full episode at content10x.com/141 called How Video Interviews on LinkedIn Can Build Authority and Connections. And of course, it's on all of the podcast apps too. Hey, just a little break from this podcast episode to ask you a question. Would you like one single place that you can go to that provides you with everything you need to be able to implement the best practices in content repurposing for your video content, your podcast episodes, and your social media content today? To help you get more value from the content that you create, get more time back, and help you reach more people than you ever thought possible. If so, then you are going to love the Content 10x Toolkit. The toolkit is full of video tutorials, templates, checklists, swipe files, step-by-step guides and more that shows you how to repurpose your content in the best ways possible today. No more Googling, no more figuring it out yourself. We provide you with everything that you need to become a content repurposing pro. If this sounds like something that would interest you, then go check out the Content 10x Toolkit at content10x.com/toolkit. Okay, and back to this week's episode. Continuing our look at the best of LinkedIn from our podcast episodes in 2020. For episode 142, I had the pleasure of interviewing Louise Brogan. Louise is a LinkedIn consultant, trainer, podcaster, and speaker who works with businesses and entrepreneurs to help them understand and use online marketing to boost their business. I invited Louise on to focus on setting up your LinkedIn profile. She shared so much useful advice with me and backed up my belief in the power of LinkedIn when she said that every great LinkedIn profile has the potential to be a lead generation machine. Here's what she had to say about how to get started on LinkedIn.
The profile is your foundation on LinkedIn, because you could be putting out amazing content, but when someone clicks through to your profile and it's not fully optimized, then you're missing a trick. So there's quite a few key pieces. Number one, make sure you have a recent headshot for your photograph, so that if I met you, I'd recognize you.
Not that one from high school 20 years ago there.
Recent headshot, like head and shoulders with just you in the photograph works really well. Looking approachable as well, so that, because we connect visually far quicker than reading any words. So looking approachable in your photograph, then writing your headline. So your headline is, if you didn't write your headline, LinkedIn would pull this as your current role or whatever's top of your list of experiences. So for example, if I didn't write my own headline, it might say Louise Brogan, software engineer, or Louise Brogan, accountant. So by writing that headline, and you've got about 200 characters here, you can really stand out on LinkedIn by writing a headline that really shows what it is that you do specialize in. If you work in a particular area or particular industry, put that in your headline. The reason headline's so important is not just because if someone goes to your profile and reads it there, but if you're commenting on, so if Amy writes a post about today's podcast and I comment underneath it, people will see my name and they will see my headline. And you want a headline that makes your ideal client or potential connection click through to check out your profile. So I talk about writing a clickable headline. And that's different for everybody because everyone might have something different to focus on. So yours could be, working with coaches and consultants, or it could be content specialist or LinkedIn consultant. So writing a headline that stands out and attracts your ideal client, first of all.
So there you have it. I loved talking to Louise, and she had more fantastic tips to share, not only about creating an effective LinkedIn profile, but also which type of content performs well and how she repurposes content for the platform. So do check out my interview with Louise in full. Head over to content10x.com/142. The episode is called How to Create Your Best LinkedIn Profile with Louise Brogan. So of course it's on all the podcast apps too. Okay, moving on. So for more on creating winning content, I spoke to Mr. LinkedIn himself, aka Mark Williams. Mark is the host of the hugely popular LinkedIn Fun podcast, and he knows how to get noticed on the platform. I had such a fantastic conversation with Mark. Listen here as I ask him what kind of content gets the best engagement on LinkedIn.
If I was to summarize it, I would say what you write in terms of the actual content itself rather than the medium is by far the most important thing. And people often lose that. They get very carried away with, should it be video? Should it be text only? Look, they all work. The most successful post in 2019 was an image post, right? But I've seen posts do well of all types. The thing they have in common is that the content is appealing to people and most importantly gets them engaged. And that's the key thing. But the most important first step in content is to understand that you cannot post content unless you are prepared to put time and effort into engaging with other people's content. Can't stress that strongly enough. Every client that I work with, we focus on that first of all. Know the topics that are of interest and relevance to your target audience. Find the content, which is easy to do on LinkedIn, and jump in and engage and engage and engage and engage and keep that momentum going throughout. By doing that, you're building relevancy. You're telling the algorithm that you're interesting in that arena, right? The people that follow you, if they show interest in similar types of posts, are more likely to see your content. Also, by engaging with other people's posts, that allows you to build your network because you will connect with someone once you've engaged with their content. And also, subsequent to that, you may well then send direct messages in both directions, and that also increases your relevancy with that person. So the bottom line is that whatever type of content you produce, as long as it's good quality and you've spent the time building relevancy, you have a really good chance of it succeeding.
Such good tips. I really enjoyed hearing Mark's insider tips to maximizing content on LinkedIn. This podcast is one of my favorites because it's crammed full of useful pointers and myth busters about everything from hashtags to including links in your posts. So if you want to listen more on this episode, head to content10x.com/148. And the episode is called How to Create Winning Content on LinkedIn with Mark Williams. So again, it's on all the podcasting apps too. Now, finally, last but certainly not least, I spoke to the wonderful AJ Wilcox, the founder of B2 Linked, one of the top 25 most influential PPC experts and a LinkedIn certified marketing partner. We spoke on episode 146 of the podcast all about LinkedIn ads, and it certainly was an eye-opener for me. Now, listen in to hear what AJ had to say when I asked him about calls to action on LinkedIn ads and the sweet spot between high and low friction CTAs.
you can ask anyone to do anything from an ad. I mean, you can ask them to buy your beachfront property on Mars if you want, but it doesn't mean that people are going to be willing to do that or even able. So what we find is there are some offers that are, I would consider, very low friction, like come and read this blog post, come and see this infographic. And of course, everyone's willing to do that. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have really high friction offers like, hey, come and buy something, come and talk to our sales rep. And then you have things that are kind of in between. What we find is the extremes don't perform very well for LinkedIn ads. If you go to the really low friction side, of course, everyone's willing to do that, but you're going to pay $8 to $11 a click to get people to read your blog post. And as you know, blog posts don't really convert all that high. No. So you'll end up with a really high cost per lead. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, sending someone from an ad directly to talk to a sales rep or buy something, people look at that and go, well, I'm not in the market for that. So, there's no reason for me to click. And so it doesn't get clicked. And the people who do click get scared away really quickly, and they only convert at 1.5% to 4% usually, leading to a really high cost per lead. So the real magic with LinkedIn is avoiding those extremes and shooting for the middle, which is I'm going to provide a lot of value to you. In exchange, I'm just asking for your personal information. So gated content, lead magnets, whatever you want to call it. But things like, here's a free guide, a cheat sheet, a checklist, a free webinar, free in-person event, an ebook. Those are the types of things that if you give someone enough value, you're solving their pain points, you're satisfying their curiosities, they will be willing to give you their information in exchange for.
Brilliant advice from AJ. If you want to listen to the full episode, just head to content10x.com/146. It's called What Everyone Needs to Know About LinkedIn Ads with AJ Wilcox. And of course, it's on all the podcasting apps too. So that wraps up this best of episode focusing on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing your time with me and taking a dip into the engaging and lucrative world of LinkedIn. I mentioned it already, but please do head to content10x.com/video guide to grab a free copy of the simple guide to getting started with video on LinkedIn. It's really, really useful, even if I do say so myself. Also, if you want help with your content repurposing, then we offer a fully end-to-end repurposing service at Content 10x. And we have a service for people on LinkedIn who want to grow their authority and influence in their industry. We are seeing some incredible results with our LinkedIn 10x service. All you have to do is create one video per week, and we will edit the video, publish it on LinkedIn and YouTube. We turn it into a fully produced podcast episode, short social media videos and graphics, and even a long form blog post as well. We do all the creation, all the copywriting, and all the publishing too. So head to content10x.com/LinkedIn10x if you want to find out more about that. And if that service isn't quite right for you, perhaps you would prefer our video or podcast 10x services, and there's a lot more information about them on the website as well. If you haven't got a copy of my book yet, then please do consider getting one. It's called Content 10x, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results, and it really is the ultimate guide to repurposing every type of content. All you need to do is head to content10x.com/book or search Content 10x on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. And please do follow me on social media. I'm at Content 10x on all the platforms, and on LinkedIn, search for Amy Wood. You'll see me there, founder of Content 10x. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the Content 10x podcast, then why not hit that subscribe button on your podcast listening app of choice so that you can get updated when new episodes are released. And I'd really, really appreciate it if you could leave a review as well. That really makes a difference for the podcast. Also, please do get a copy of my book, Content 10x, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results. It is the ultimate ultimate guide to repurposing every type of content. And it's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback, and also in audiobook as well. And you can head to content10x.com/book to find all the other places that you can get a copy of my book. And if you would like us to do your content repurposing for you, then we offer a fully end-to-end done-for-you content repurposing service. This is for podcasters and video content creators. We have our Podcast 10x, Video 10x, and also our specific LinkedIn 10x service, helping you to become the leading authority in your industry on LinkedIn. You can find out so much more about our services on our website. And also, please do give me a follow on the social media platforms. I share lots and lots of tips and advice on social media about content repurposing. I'm at Content 10x on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you try content10x.com/LinkedIn, you'll find my LinkedIn profile over there as well. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.